Yeah, so today we're breaking into topic group 4, which is kind of a big deal because there's only 5 topic areas, and we're through the third, which is the biggest one.
Look at that
There
schedule.
are 5 topic areas, and then the full review of the course. So we are currently in the mid-battle improvements. We've just started it, or this is the start of it. We got through the basics, we got through the high ROI stuff, and the team building aspects. Team building being one of my favorites of PvP, so we're getting into the nitty-gritty before getting into those really, really try-hard kind of like meta stuff. And then we'll do a full review. But today what we're looking at is energy management, both yourself and your opponents, and charge move timing, which is, I feel, the most flagship kind of like getting the full extent out of PvP that you can ask for.
Yeah, I would say that like this stuff here, I know that we've done a lot of lessons essentially on the study of PvP, almost building teams and learning type effectiveness and compositions. These are all like things that you really do need to understand to actually sort of make some big gains. But this is the stuff that I think is very much where the rubber starts to hit the road on simply playing the game effectively. And you can build a perfect team and know exactly what you're supposed to do, but the difference between winning and losing when you have sort of a fair game, when you're not necessarily just beating your opponent on alignment and team comp, this is where you'll start to do that. Because at the end of the day, the person who's going to win, if you're going to play, say, 3 mirror matches in a row, which does happen, is the person who best understands and utilizes these sort of mechanical elements of PvP.
For sure, yeah. This is the biggest stuff when you get into those even matchups. You get into those things like, you know, a Greedent versus a G-Fisk might come down to a debuff, but also heavily relies on whether or not they get free energy in the form of mud shots, whether you get free energy in the form of bullet seeds, and so on. So that is the main premise of this, also carrying energy in and out of matchups. But yeah, that's what this is energy management and charge move timing, which comes in tandem with it.
Awesome.
So if we want to get into that. So energy management on your own side is how you manage your energy, which is a very straightforward concept. But in practice is very, very intricate. So this is the part where I tell you you have to count moves. And I know that everyone's crying and sobbing over that because it's not fun. It is notably not fun part of PvP, is the really try hard, okay, I'm counting moves both myself and my opponent. So there's 4 aspects to your self energy management. There's the 100 energy limit. There is how much energy your fast move generates. There's how much energy your charge move costs. And there's how much energy you can take out of a matchup. And this final part relies on your opponent energy management. So we're going to go to the next slide in a second. But first, like, this is, in essence, this is the screenshot I took from today's stream. I have so much energy. That is not quite 100 energy, but nearing there. Why am I not throwing it? And it's because of that 4th section of how much energy I can take out of a matchup and whether or not I should throw it.
One of the little bits of info, like the nugget that I like to share, and this is there's a caveat to this, but I'll generally say this: in a fair game of PvP, in a game where players are playing essentially balanced Pokemon, right? Pokemon that do a combination of fast and charge move damage. Typically, the player who converts their energy to damage the most effectively wins the game. So. And you don't count overkill in that. So, for example, if you were to throw a charge move as Machamp, you've not converted damage to energy particularly effectively. If you I converted it to its health. Right, exactly. And so I think that's one of those little rules of thumb. It gets thrown out the window when you think about fast move damage dependent Pokemon, right? Charm and Razor Leaf kind of throw it out the window. But generally speaking, I mean, in theory, you don't, because you could just count damage done by fast moves as 0 energy, which is literally the most efficient style. Right?
Yes.
That's the most efficient you could be on converting your energy to damage, which is fast moves. So you probably do win if you did more damage that way. But
when you counter down a Galarian Stunfisk,
right,
and you're not using any energy, that's really good.
Yeah, provided you use the energy efficiently later. But that is one of those little rules of thumb, and it's something that I think it's not quite the team that scores more points wins the football game kind of thing. It is actually a really good thing to remember that, essentially the player who better uses their energy is going to win the game. And it's something to keep in mind as we go through this lesson.
For sure. But if we want to get into the next slide. So energy management of your opponent. This is the really hard part where I say that you have to count moves. So there are 70 fast attacks in the game presently. Sadly, that is one too many for the funny number. However, there are effectively 28 fast attacks in the game. I have them listed right up here. And you can see these are moves that are often seen in the Play Pokemon regionals, so these are the core kind of centralized Great Leagues. This is even extending to things like Bug Bite Araquanid, which isn't super meta, things like Volt Switch Galvantula, like Pokemon that are more fringe than they are meta-centric. But you have, just to run down that list, Air Slash, Bubble, Bug Bite, Bullet Seed, Charm, Counter, Dragon Breath, Ember, Fire Spin, Hex, Ice Shard, Incinerate, Lick, Lock On, Mud Shot, Poison Jab, Poison Sting, Powder Snow, Psycho Cut, Shadow Claw, Smackdown, Snarl, Thundershock, Vine Whip, Volt Switch, Water Gun, and Wing Attack. Those are 28 fast attacks. If you know how much energy each of those generates, and I can guarantee you that I do, then this all becomes very easy. And Matt makes an excellent point in chat that a lot of these are clones of one another, or copies of one another. Vine Whip and Powder Snow generate the same amount of energy. Thundershock and Mud Shot generate the same amount of energy. Fire Spin and Ice Shard generate the same amount of energy. So, for the purpose of counting moves and counting the energy that your opponent has, you just have to learn one parameter if you know that they're all the same. Now, if you know these 28, you know how much energy they generate, then the only things that you have to apply information to beyond counting that energy is how much damage you're taking. So, each time your opponent uses a fast attack, the stored energy of that Pokemon increases by X, where X is a fast move energy generation. And then the charge attack spends this. I've conceptualized this, or I've visualized this here. You have Trevenant and Kofagrigus. These are two ghost types. They have these containers. It goes up to 100. That is their potential energy. Both of them have Shadow Ball at 55. And then Kofagrigus has Dark Pulse at 50. And Trevenant has Seed Bomb at 40. Now, each time that either of you uses a Shadow Claw, it increases by the same amount, 8 energy. Shadow Claw is a 2-turn fast move. It does 6 damage as a base, and 8 energy is generated. So Trevenant reaches that Seed Bomb faster. But every time it uses a Seed Bomb, it costs 40 energy. It's very clean. It's 5 Shadow Claws, it gets depleted. If it uses a Shadow Ball, well, let's see. They went up to potentially, 64 energy for the Shadow Ball. Maybe they only went up to 56 energy, which would be 7. Well, now they have 1 residual, or they have 9 residual. Or maybe they went up all the way to 96 before throwing, and now they have 41 energy residual. Well, how much energy are they taking into the next matchup? When can you throw a move before they hit that next threshold? That's all very simple math. And it's very frustrating math because it's very real time. And it's a lot of calculations you're doing moment to moment, especially on these quicker duration fast moves. Very, very interestingly, on stream today, I was playing against a Registeel, and they threw a Zap Cannon at me. And I said, okay, I don't know how much energy they were at before they threw that Zap Cannon. They're at maximum at 20 energy, because Zap Cannon's 80. And I literally on stream went 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, and then I threw a move. So I was like, they could be at Focus Blast now.
Right.
That's not fun, but it is how you get the top, and to some it is. So for me, if I'm in the competitive mindset, I actually do find that enjoyable. Getting the most efficient use of everything. But that's like the level of doing math, subtracting energy used during a charge move, and then doing more math from it. And then this plays back into your self-management, unless if you wanted to say something about this.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's nice to see a picture of what this looks like at a top level from a top level player, because you and I play very differently, at least right now, where you're looking towards the most competitive viable way to play, and I'm sort of enjoying playing the way I am. I'm not currently preparing for a regionals, right? If I were, I would be doing something similar, right? There would be a different kind. I'm not good with the numbers in the way you are. So for example, I've always been a count the number of moves sort of person. Yeah. And I typically use, say, the heuristics of which move they're at to, and I store that. So for example, like if a Trevenant leaves with Shadow Ball, I don't think Trevenant left with 67 energy. I think Trevenant left with a Shadow Ball, and I keep that. And I know that leaves me in some fuzzy places. For example, if it leaves between Seed Bomb and Shadow Ball, I may not know exactly how many it needs. I just know to account that it's close to where I need to play to that out. And it punts some level of optimization, because sometimes it's like I need to know if it's 1 or 2 between, and I don't, because I've sort of simplified it. But what's important there, I think, for folks who are maybe coming up closer and trying to get closer to where I'm currently playing at before making that leap to where you're at, the principle that you're expressing applies, which is that, let's say you've got a Pokemon, they've got a Registeel, and you've got a Pokemon that is working towards its energy, and you need to kill the Registeel. Do you throw right as soon as you can? No. You know that it's going to take them, even if you're not counting, even if you just have a feel, you know that you can get 1 or 2 extra Shadow Claws in there, because you know it's going to take them time to get their next move. Say it's Sableye and Registeel. I guess those are 2 Pokemon I'm working with right now. So instead of throwing as soon as you get that, they threw a Zap Cannon. I know I should be able to get even 1 more Shadow Claw. If you just go 1 over every time when you know you can, and be like, I'm going to play it safe because I'm not counting, but I want to take advantage of this, then you can do it. And you'll be surprised at just how much your game will benefit from making those decisions. The game's obviously more complicated than that. There's other things to consider, but knowing roughly, even roughly understanding this principle, understanding how those bars fill and how your energy and your opponent's energy matter, and taking advantage of those gaps when they present themselves, is a massive improvement to the quality of your game. And you will start to find yourself winning a lot more games when you go, you know what? I know that they need 5 Vine Whips to get to their next Frenzy Plant. I can kill them now, or I can do 2 more moves and then kill them. Do 2 more moves and kill them. You're going to do way better.
Exactly.
And Coach K, absolutely fucking not. Because the current skill ceiling in Pokemon Go, while I think there is a nice skill ceiling, it's not that high when you think about it. The skill ceiling Go is all reflex based. It's about managing that information and making smart, quick decisions. Making energy visible removes one of the few true skill testing elements from high level play, because even high level players will sometimes miscount a move.
Oh, all the time.
And especially in sequence breaks where Pokemon come in and out, being able to keep track of that is a real differentiator between the best and the rest. I just think putting opponent's energy on screen is miserable UI wise. There's nowhere to put it. And two, I just think it would eliminate that, right? Using my style of counting, finished 4th at the Vancouver Regional. I wish Chaz were here to.
He would be not so happy with that, but
yeah, Chaz will tell you don't need to count, but also I think Chaz maybe is not counting in the traditional sense, but Chaz is counting in the sense that I do, just at a much higher level than I do. Oh
yeah, and I used to do that. Like I've only recently started doing the counting and such.
Yeah, but I think when prepping for a tournament like you're doing, you're going to get yourself a much better return on investment for time by getting better at that.
Yeah. If we want to go to the next one, that's exactly what you were talking about. So how much energy you can take out of a matchup. This is the biggest thing. This is the biggest benefit to get from energy management, both self and opponent facing, is how much of an energy swing, is the commonly used term, can you get from this? So we're back to self energy management. How much will you survive from your opponent? That's both fast and charge moves. If I am in a matchup like Galarian Stunfisk against Cresselia, can I survive another Grass Knot? And do I want to? Because it allows me to store more energy to lead into the next matchup. Is it better for me to have this amount of health, or is it better for me to have this amount of energy? How many fast attacks can you get in before your opponent gets to a charge attack? So if you're a Medicham playing against a Galarian Stunfisk, they've thrown an Earthquake and they go to 8 Mud Shots, or they go to 7 Mud Shots. The 8th Mud Shot will get them to an Earthquake, depending on residual energy. So, do you want to CMP tie them? Do you want to hit it before you CMP tie them? So if they sneak a Mud Shot through, you can again throw a second, say you're throwing Ice Punch, throw a second Ice Punch. And do you want to force a shield in that way? By throwing right before they get to throw their move. Because those are all important decisions to make, and knowing the energy count for your opponent allows you to better manage when you use that energy for yourself. And then how much energy is the last charge attack you need to use? This is something that you talked about earlier, is overkill. So if my Tapu Fini is against a Trevenant, and the Trevenant's at about 25% HP, I don't need to throw the Moonblast. I can probably throw the Surf. And I'm only using 40 energy rather than 60, and I'm getting more into the next matchup. This is actually why we talk quite a bit in Go Stadium about Pokemon that sim better than they perform, and Pokemon that perform better than they sim. Registeel is a monster, and I don't mean to downplay that at all, but Registeel also sims better than it performs, because it can't do this energy swing nearly as well. It can't take energy out of a matchup because at most you're saving 25 energy if you throw a Focus Blast. I've played a lot of Cresselia this morning with Registeel that I lock them onto the Registeel, but I can only take 25 energy from that matchup unless I put them in lock-on farm down range, which is really hard to do with Registeel. On the contrary, on the other hand, Walrein has a 35 energy charge move. Walrein has a very high damage 35 energy charge move. So very often, if you're in a very positive matchup, you can get to 100 energy and take most of that energy out of the matchup. So Walrein tends to perform better than it sims. And then ultimately, again, all of this is math and very rapid fire math, because you are managing 2 persons' energy, yourself and your opponent. Yourself, you don't have to do as intimately because it is displayed. But when you get to the fringes of like, oh, am I at over 100? Well, I have Hydro Cannon on my Swampert. I'm at 2 Hydro Cannons, so that's 80. And I'm about halfway filled, so I guess I am at like 99 maybe. That's really, really a lot to keep in track of. And then, as you mentioned before, keeping in mind opponents' other Pokemon really exacerbates this.
Yeah, I was gonna say something that happens a lot on stream, and I talk about this in making determinations. If you know, say, once you have knowledge, there are examples where, going back to that concept earlier on, where the player who best converts energy to damage wins the game. It doesn't matter, say, how much your Venusaur farms down a Pokemon, how much energy it comes out of. If you know they have a Skarmory on their team, you are not going to be able to efficiently convert damage to energy. It just doesn't matter what you do there. And while you can't necessarily say make the determination like, oh, I guess I won't come out with energy, or like, you also, there's another factor here, which is frequently you'll be, and this will be something that I'm sure will come up, you will be forced to choose, do I want to come out of a matchup with energy and behind a shield, or do I want to come out of energy dry but at shield parity? And your knowledge of whether or not you can effectively convert the current energy you have to damage is a strong component of that, right? And that's something that when you start to get into the really nitty gritty here, knowing, for example, what you're likely to see across the way and how effectively you're going to be able to convert that saved energy, that stored energy, to damage is something you're going to be able to do. And in a show 6 format like regionals, you'll know what your opponent has. So if you've got a Venusaur and their team is devoid of Skarmory, you're likely going to be able to convert it pretty effectively into damage. Because even like 2 Frenzy Plants is a big chunk of a Registeel, for example. Like, and they're gonna, once again, have to throw a bunch of energy at you to finish you off. So knowing that is really, really, really important. And something that is, you know, it doesn't matter how much energy you can take out of a matchup if you can't do anything with that energy afterwards. Yeah,
for sure. And that's a little bit into next week with charge move selection, and like how an opponent, like whether you want to, you know, use a cheaper charge move and farm down. Right. Again, very nebulous, like things that live in between topics. Or if you want to force a shield or get that switch, right, get them out of the way, avoid having to tank another thing.
Yeah.
But then the last section of this lesson is the most original, like, flagship kind of juicing the lemon increase in power ceiling in Pokemon Go PvP. And I want to give a big shout out to, I believe Flark Fiasco was the first person to make like a big Reddit post about this. I think, did you know Flark in some way? I never knew him.
I knew Flark personally because Flark was a quasi local here. He played outside of the Seattle area, but I played him in the season 1 Sylph regionals. I always tell stories about how I got absolutely screwed. It was against Flark.
Nice.
Where he let a Pokemon die that he should not have let die. It was he had a Steelix and my entire team was terrible against Steelix. And he let it die in the lead. And then my game basically shat the bed. And I was like, I could request a rematch, but same lines means you'll just 2-shield the Steelix. You know my entire back line now. I'm not beating you, so we just sort of let it go. But yeah, I do know Flark. Or did know Flark.
Yeah, I think he's gone kind of absent.
I have not heard from him. Yeah, people come and go. I've not heard from him in a while.
But yeah, so unfortunate. My condolences. But he did his big famous kind of Reddit post back in early Sylph Season 2 was about the Lapras Venusaur matchup. Now, the Lapras Venusaur matchup, according to PvPoke, also hi Matt, was a matchup that Lapras won. Because the Ice Shards did enough and the Surfs did enough, and Venusaur just didn't make it to a second Frenzy Plant. Clark puts out this post about how you time your charge moves. And because Vine Whip is a 2-turn fast move and Ice Shard is a 3-turn fast move, if you throw your charge move after you throw 1 Vine Whip into 1 Ice Shard, your opponent doesn't get any free moves. They only get that 1 free turn. Which is good, and I'm not trying to say that Flark invented this, but rather popularized this, because I know other trainers were doing this. Now, what would happen if you took that in mind is your Venusaur didn't clip on an Ice Shard. Effectively, if you threw as soon as you got your Frenzy Plant, you gave the Lapras 2 turns of Ice Shard. You threw, say, 2 Vine Whips and then a Frenzy Plant into. They threw 1 Ice Shard. They threw the second Ice Shard right as you start your Frenzy Plant. So you get this whole amount of damage in. If you played it the other way, you completely flip the matchup. You additionally, because of how it impacted the amount of damage you were taking, could win at disadvantage because you're playing so optimally, and you get to another Frenzy Plant so long as they play a little suboptimally. So it was really, really impactful. People started picking up on this a lot more commonly, a lot more across the board, and this is where I started doing it because I was relatively new to Pokemon Go PvP at the time. And additionally, this is where you minimize things like fast move denial or fast move sneak that people often talk about. Is obviously in a 2-turn fast move versus a 2-turn fast move, you can't do anything. But a 2-turn fast move versus a 3-turn fast move, if you're not throwing on alignment, then there's no sneak that can happen outside of lag. The graphic I have at the bottom, and Cody or Endon, if they were here, would yell at me because it has the old Go Stadium logo. But it's a chart that kind of shows it. So it's the amount of fast moves you throw before throwing, your charge move once you're at alignment. And at alignment means your start of the match or after a charge move is thrown. So let's pick at random a 4-turn fast move into a 3-turn fast move. You want to throw 2 and then throw.
Right.
And I see this, I play this out all the time. I played this out a lot in ADL because I had Shadow Hypno. So if I'm Shadow Hypno against an Azumarill, for instance, I throw 2 Confusions, that's 8 turns. The 3rd bubble resolves on the 9th turn, so I'm good to throw my move. And then across the board here we have, Talonflame against a 4-turn fast move, you throw 2, because you're on turn 10, they have until turn 12. It's not perfect, and that's why it's in blue on this chart, is you're giving them 2 turns. You have, the first row is very easy because if you have a 1-turn fast move, and this is why I really like Tapu Fini, this is why I really like Lickitung. If you're against a Pokemon that's a 2-turn fast move, you just throw after 1. Against 3, you throw after 2. Against 4, you throw after 3. And against 5, you throw after 4. And I think that's the easiest way for someone to learn this method is through 1-turn fast moves. Because you just learn, working through the immediacy of your opponent's charge move and when you throw. Then from there, you can say, okay, I'm working 2 into a 3. I'm working counter into bubble. I throw a counter and then I throw psychic. And then you can move up to, I'm using bubble, my opponent has confusion. I'm gonna throw 1 and then throw, or however it may be. But those 1 and 2-turn fast moves, both, 1, help you learn this a lot easier, and 2, tend to be the most efficient with it, because 1 goes into 3 a lot easier than 4 goes into 3. And this is something that it takes a lot of practice to get used to, and in some instances it is not worth it because of what we talked about prior. If your opponent is about to get to a Hydro Pump on their Azumarill, and you're like, well, I just threw 2 counters, I need to throw 4 counters before I can throw my Psychic. No! Please, throw your move. Force them to shield, or if they have no shields, force them to not get the charge move. It is very easy for you to get out of some skilled gameplay if you're overly trying to learn this. And that can be fine if you're focused on the long term. You're going to learn eventually that this is very optimal. This is very juicing the lemon. This is very, very good for your overall win rate, for similar reasons to what we discussed earlier with other energy management tactics. But it does not supersede a lot of the other skill focuses that we've talked about either. And even things like Coach K mentioned around debuffs. If I'm facing a Dugong, I want to throw my energy before that energy is made less valuable.
Again, the more damage you do per energy over the course of the battle, the more likely you are to win the game. But I would also say, one of the reasons 1-turn works so well too is something that is sort of additional, and we talked about this a lot, and we talk about a lot. Everyone always talks about how charms always come through. The charms always sneak. Here's the rub. If you don't actually count, if you don't bother to commit this stuff to memory and learn how to actually properly time your stuff, the animations don't always properly sync up with the timings. Charm is not a charm issue. It's the fact that the animations are not always super clean for charm. Some of the Pokemon that use charm that are very common, particularly Wigglytuff, its animation does not sync up particularly well with charm's timing. So if you're someone like me who tends to rely visually on clues, it's very easy to miss your windows, and it becomes even easier to miss your windows when you have like a 2 and a 3 turn move that have kind of funky animations that don't maybe line up properly. You're gonna think that your animation's about to end and theirs is still in progress, and you're actually just wrong, right? 1 turn fast moves are great because really usually the punishment for getting it wrong is you go a turn too early, not a turn too late. So like it ends up being much less punishing, because you're less likely to throw in alignment with a 1 turn move, even if you're not doing it super correctly. But it is something to note that the reason why it's important to know what the moves are, to know, say, confusion is this many turns and mudshot is this many turns, is because you actually want to be thinking about that and not necessarily relying on the animations like all of us do. The easiest way to break into this concept, at least in my estimation, is in the interactions that occur directly after a charge move is thrown by your opponent. So for example, if you have a Sableye and your opponent has a Hypno and they throw a move at you, rather than just throw your move right away, go Shadow Claw, my fast move is 2 turns. Confusion, their fast move is 4 turns. I'm not crazy, right? It's 4.
Yes.
I should throw 1 Shadow Claw before throwing my charge move. And guess what? That is correct. And you'll do that. And if you start to think that way, so for example, you're up against a Talonflame and maybe you have a Stunfisk. You really want to make sure you get there with those rock slides. They throw a move and you go, well, Mudshot's 2 turns, Incinerate's 5. If I go Mudshot to 4, I can throw a Rock Slide. And that's 2, even if you already have the Rock Slide, that's 2 more Mudshots you just got for free. And if they shield, then you're like, great, I can then go Mudshot for another Rock Slide on their 1 Incinerate. And you're going to spot yourself a ton of advantage, even just learning it in that one tiny sort of insular moment. And then you'll start to be able to convert that to bigger scenarios where you're in the lead and you're like, well, I'm on 2, they're on 3, so I want to throw after, what, like, I don't even know. That's a problem. I'm bad at this. This is one of the skills that I don't particularly practice.
If you're 2 into 3, you might want to throw after 7. Or 7 counters, for instance.
Right. Yeah, because that'd be 14 and 15, right?
Yep.
I was looking for that number in my head, and I couldn't do it.
It's every 3 because you get 3 to their 2.
Yeah.
So it's 1, 4, 7, 10, and so on.
if you know the fight's gonna go on for a while, that's the other part is like sometimes fights you're not that flexible, right? You need to outrace to the first move to put pressure on them, and you don't mind spotting them a turn or 2 because you know that getting the shield out of them first is gonna put them on their back foot, and you can make adjustments. So there's certainly some things there, or if you have the debuffing move, you're like, I don't care what I spot them, I need them doing the minimum amount of damage as soon as possible. So everything, this is situational. But I would say that the best and easiest place to really apply this for simple gains is going to be in those scenarios where a charge move has been used. How many fast moves should you use before you use your next charge, before you use yours? And it's your reminder, if you come from the old days like me, piggybacking is bad now. Don't do it. Don't throw your moves back to back. You never want to be doing that anymore. It is actively the wrong play. It used to be the correct play. It is no longer the correct play. You should always.
It's so unfortunate.
it's fine to go up to 2 moves and have 2 available, but you should always probably put a fast move in between. Unless you absolutely need to throw the second one to kill their Pokemon and prevent them from killing you.
Yep.
So.
But that's it for this week on energy management and charge move timing. However, of course, there is very in-depth homework. So
Yay.
I picked Politoed here. I picked Politoed because Politoed learns a slew of different charge moves and has 2 different fast moves. So this is very simple math. It is literally addition or division or multiplication, whatever you want to call it. Number of mud shots for 3 weather balls. For 2 earthquakes, I could literally do each of these right here on stream. 2 weather balls and an earthquake. 1 weather ball and a blizzard. Number of bubbles to 2 weather balls. So bubbles a slightly different move, but it's also a meta move. We see a Azumarill. We see other mudshot users, and then Surf and a Blizzard. Second question is, in the Trevenant versus Medicham 1 versus 2 shield matchup, I need to add the S there, but 1 versus 2 shield matchup, how much energy can you leave the matchup with if you wait to throw until you CMP tie? So this is you are a Trevenant, you are shielding 1 Ice Punch, and they are shielding 2 Seed Bombs. You can leave that matchup with energy after winning that matchup. But how much? And that's going to require previous things that we taught, because PV Poke throws the move as soon as it can. PV Poke looks to save as much health as possible, leaving a matchup. Whereas in a matchup like this, where counter's dealing effectively 0 damage to you,
right,
I would much prefer to leave with energy. So I would like to get as close to that Ice Punch as I can.
Right.
Extra credit is the same for Noctowl versus Lickitung in the 1s. There's another situation. These are 2 Pokemon that I've been considering heavily for regionals. There's another situation where Lick is not doing much damage at all to you as a normal type, and getting more energy to leave the matchup with is nice.
Yeah.
And then the optimal charge move time to throw each of the following: Azumarill versus Talonflame, Hypno versus Azumarill, Swampert versus Galvantula, Jellicent versus Stunfisk. Either of them, because it's all 2-turn fast moves.
Right.
And then Talonflame versus Scrafty. We have a nice diversity of fast move turns in that group. This is just Hoff's regional scouting? Never.
I mean, kind of, but doesn't everyone doing the homework probably is okay with that too, so
oh yeah. Scratch your back and you scratch mine, something like that.
And as per usual, for those of you watching maybe for the first time or don't know where to do said homework, if you're going to participate, you're going to want to join our Discord, and that is where you will find all of this information. It's where this lesson will also be posted after the fact. If you're looking for just the visual, if you're looking for the video, I will be posting it on YouTube as per usual. All of the previous lessons are all up on YouTube as well. If you are curious about them, they are there for you.